orchestra. Sweet thing, oh, when you look at my way, give a smile and run away. Am I only dreaming? Love is just a song. There's been something missing in my life so long. Darling, I got something to say. When I do, I hope you'll stay. If you're lonely, listen, words are in my song. I will never lie to you wrong. I've been watching you, and I've tried so hard to show you my heart's standing at your door. Won't you please listen to me? Darling, I got something to say. When I do, I hope you'll stay. If you're lonely, listen, words are in the song. I would never lie to you wrong. I've been watching you, and I've tried so hard to show you my heart standing at your door. Won't you please listen to me? Won't you please listen to me?
My name is Conan Dunham, gay songwriter and recording artist, and that was Sweet Thing. It was a song from my third album, Conan 3, in 1983. In part one of this series, I told you that I was going to talk more about my true love and partner of 33 years, and still going strong. Well, the song was written about Rusty, and that is him on bass at our album release party in the Veterans Memorial Auditorium of San Francisco. In the first of these three series, I began with my musical beginnings in 1969, and I left off at the return from my East Coast radio tour and the Freedom Train to Washington in 1979. Well, when I returned to San Francisco, I pretty much decided that I should become somewhat of a hermit. I made up my mind that I was going to put all my energy into writing and recording new material. That meant I wouldn't be going out anymore to clubs and parties. To tell you the truth, I'd had enough one-night stands to last me a lifetime. Well, then I met Paul Brannon, one of the most talented and influential musicians of my lifetime. That actually continues to this day, because on the last single, This Queer Don't Run, that was recorded and produced with Paul and his sidekicks last May while Rusty and I were on vacation in California. I had met Paul through an ad I had placed in a local paper. I was advertising for musicians to play local clubs and recording sessions. Our first gig was at the Carnival Club in the Tenderloin area of San Francisco. It was a gay crossover club. And Paul, being a heterosexual and a very nice guy, he was kind of wondering what it was like to be in a gay club. Well, they had some drag queens come in that night, and they were drinking drinks, and Paul looks over, he says, well, they're not all gay here. He says, I sure wouldn't mind any of those three. I says, Paul? He says, no. I says, yes. Well, during the following 6 months or so, Paul and I would begin recording the songs for an upcoming album to be entitled Heart of the City. In May of 1981, I was invited to appear on Fruit Punch Radio. It was a gay radio show on KPFA in Berkeley. And that would become the catalyst for new music and a travel adventure for me and my soon-to-be partner. While waiting for my spot on the show, I met a man and his wife sitting there. They were from Aberdeen, Scotland, and they were waiting for their protege, or they were the sponsor of this young man from London, who was a gay songwriter and playwright by the name of Mark Bunyan. And actually, later on, we would visit Mark while we were in Great Britain and stay with him and his partner, Andy. And we're still in touch to this day. Well, that night would be the beginning of a great friendship. Would take my soon-to-be partner and myself to Scotland and France in the following 6 months. Now, several weeks later, I was stuck in a Greyhound bus depot in Sacramento trying to get back to the city from one of the worst days of my life. I felt like every friend I had known there was turning their back on me that day for one reason or the other. So here I was stuck in a Greyhound bus station trying to get back to the city from a terrible day in my life. Well, next to me there at the depot, I noticed this very attractive blonde young man sitting there anxiously tapping his foot, and I was bored and wanted to talk anyway, and I looked at him. I said, what are you high on? You do some speed or something? He looked at me and goes, no, why? And I says, whoa. I said, just asking. I says, you know, you seem pretty wired up. He says, well, wouldn't you be? And I guess he'd just broken up with his partner there, and it turned out he was trying to get back all the way to Tampa, Florida, back to his father's place, and he was waiting for his dad to wire him a bus ticket. And I asked him, I says, you got any money? He said, no, I got about 20 cents in my pocket. And I says, he says, but my dad's going to be sending me a ticket and I'll be on a bus tonight. Well, I used to work at Western Union, which was 2 blocks from there. I says, I don't mean to crash your bubble, but I said, you're not going to get a money order even if it's sent here in Sacramento until Monday morning. And he kind of snarled or something. I says, okay, kid. I says, look, I says, Western Union's 2 blocks away. I used to work there. I says, come on, let's take a ride. And so, surprisingly enough, he walked with me. We went over to Western Union, and of course, everybody there knew me because I've been a night manager for several years. And they said, hey, what are you doing? I said, well, tell this young man here, he thinks he's getting a bus ticket tonight wired from Tampa, Florida. Well, they proceeded to tell him the same thing I had told him, and which meant he wasn't going to get anything till Monday morning. And here it was, well, almost midnight on a Saturday night. Well, I told him if he wished to do it, he could come back with me to San Francisco and stay at my place and have his dad wire the ticket to San Francisco. And he decided yes. Well, he came back and stayed with me, and of course, things weren't going to pan out for him. So I told him, you know, he was welcome to stay there with me. And matter of fact, the gay club across the corner needed some help there. They had a hotel room there, the Casa Loma Hotel in San Francisco. Well, that was the very, very beginning, and there's much, much more to the story and the songs. But on that day, on that horrible day, June 7th, 1980, I met the love of my life, and that's Rusty. Well, it wasn't but a few days later that Neil and Cecilia, that was the two people from Scotland, showed up at the door and basically wanted some guidance on where to go and who to see to book Mark Bunyan around there for a couple of months and how to promote him. And we became very, very good friends. And in September, which was my birthday, I got a birthday card from Scotland, and it was from them, and they were sending us airfare to come and visit them for Christmas. Oh, wow. First I fall in love. 6 months later I'm on my way to Scotland. And Rusty says, well, I guess that'll be our honeymoon. But we got over there and it was just incredible. We had 2 months we ended up staying over there. And the Gamekeeper's Lodge, which Neil owned at that time, next to a great castle that had been restored. And we spent 2 months there, and part of it was going to France and doing other things, and then we ended up back in London and spent about 3 or 4 days with Mark Bunyan and Andy, which was wonderful. And then on the way back, we were on British Airways, and I used to fly when I was young. I learned how to fly a small airplane. And I just asked one of the stewardesses there if it was possible to go into the cockpit. I said, you know, I used to fly a plane, and I didn't really dream that would happen. But after the movie was over, they came back and said, the captain will see you. No, the captain will see you and your mate. They were very British. Now, and we went into the cockpit. It was just an amazing example of how things have changed and how the way they were. And British Airways was just wonderful to us on that trip. But then, we even got a picture of us sitting in the cockpit flying back over Greenland or Iceland or somewhere. It was an incredible feeling though in that cockpit. There was no sense of motion whatsoever. So there we were, headed home from our dream honeymoon with new dreams. And when we returned from Scotland and got home to San Francisco, it was starting over again. Rusty went back to the hotel. He stayed there for a while, and then he ended up at the Pacific Stock Exchange. And at the same time, Rusty was practicing his bass all the time. He wanted to be part of the band. And Paul Brandon and I were busy wrapping up the songs for the album, Heart of the City. We didn't know how we were going to do this, but we did. And by the time it came along another year, we were working on another third album, which was called Conan 3, A Sure Thing. By this time, Rusty is playing music with me, but he's not recording yet. Conan and the Platinum Cowboys live at the Chi-Chi Club, Broadway in San Francisco. And that was a song called What's Come Over Me, another song for Rusty. It was a song I wrote and we recorded on a project called Play It Again. It was one of the 3 recording projects we made with the Platinum Cowboys in David Denny's studio and never released. We were at the Chi-Chi Club that night with David Denny, Bobby Scott, Dr. John Mallinckrodt, and John Fisher, the drummer, who had played on Tell Old Anita on the album. He was back again. Well, in the mid-'80s, I met David Denny, formerly from the Steve Miller Band, and Bobby Scott, who had been working with a lot of other people like Stevie Wonder doing session work. Both of them at one time had worked in production for Motown in the 60s, but now they had kind of come to the end of all of that. And David had a recording studio in the basement of a restaurant in the Mission District of San Francisco. And it was quite dangerous down there at Valencia. And it was like the Valencia projects were there, so whenever we came up out of the basement at night, we had to watch it because a lot of times there was shooting and things going on. That was what you call a city rock time of my life, I guess, you know. But we decided that we would take a chance and begin recording some of the music we had written and had been playing in the clubs together, Rusty and I. He was now playing bass very, very well. For 3 years we would record 3 of our very best album projects I think we had done so far. But then we decided rather than process them, we'd pretty much had it with the music scene in the Bay Area and we just wanted to get away. So we sold our house in Oakland, California and bought a 19-foot self-contained trailer and a good used pickup and decided we would just drive into the Northern California forest and camp out and live and do nothing except write music and have a nice long vacation. It was during this time I decided I would begin writing my autobiography. I talked about it for years and this was a perfect time. And I decided to title it From Bastard to Believer. And later on I will explain that more. But we spent a lot of time in all the national forests up there, different ones where we could camp for free, and the only time we ever went near a town was just to resupply. So when we started running low on money though, later in the year, we decided to move into Redding and start over again. So we took our trailer and moved into a trailer park on Clear Creek, which was a very poor end of town. And we went right back into the music. We reformed a band and went back into those mining towns and forest areas where we've been camping and started playing music in the clubs. That was all grand until I went swimming in a contaminated creek which ran from some of the abandoned mines up in the foothills. And I was stricken with a blood fungus, which the doctor said they could not cure. They tried different antibiotics, all kinds of fancy things. And finally I thought, well, if I'm going to die, I want to go back to Sacramento. It's kind of my home base. Every time something happened in my life, I always ended up back in Sacramento. Well, obviously the doctors didn't know the magic of erythromycin and had been giving me all the new antibiotics which did not work. I recovered and bingo, we opened a bicycle shop. Now that was a brand new one because it was an old honky-tonk from the 20s, a large place, but the owner wanted to get them out of there, so we ended up starting a bicycle shop there, and it was so large we moved into the back. I mean, there was bathrooms and kind of a kitchen and all of that. And it was a very unusual bicycle shop. On Sundays we were open, but there was a sign in the window saying, when we are rehearsing, do not bother us till we take a break and then we'll wait on you. So it was a very unusual time of life there.
Raised by the preacher
who taught me to stand alone. It was all about doing right, let nobody do you wrong. Homeboys were waiting for their victim of the night. Homeboys thought they had me, closing in for the fight. Homeboys saw their big mistake when they saw me draw my gun. Homeboys got their big surprise, fear now in